for a moment, who is the worst third baseman in baseball? Maybe your mind has wandered to Hunter Dozier, who has posted negative 3.7 WAR since 2021, or maybe Nick Maton, who is worth negative 1.5 in 2023 alone. Now imagine either of those two guys turning into one of the best hitters in the league. Pretty unlikely, right? But that's what happened with Edwin Encarnacion. From 2005 to 2009, he was the worst third baseman in baseball, constantly making errant throws in the field and held an underwhelming bat for a man at the hot corner. In total, he amassed just 3.9 WAR during this span, ranking the worst among third basemen. That's why at the 2009 trade deadline, Reds GM Walt Jocketty looked to acquire a more established big leaguer. So off Edwin went to Toronto. Not many people thought too much of it, not even the Blue Jays could have assumed he would become one of the best bats in the entire league. When the Jays acquired him, they were in a strange position, finishing middle of the pack in the AL East the previous 4 years despite having a decent squad. They had Roy Halladay, who led the league in innings pitched with 930 and a third between 2006 to 2009, while maintaining a solid 3.11 ERA and 3.30 FIP. They even had Frank Thomas, who many of you might not have even known played on the Jays. In total, they had the 10th most wins in baseball during the 4 years before Encarnacion's arrival, but they never finished higher than third in the AL East, and the Jays didn't necessarily bring Edwin in to fix that. Sure, he was a young guy that had displayed some power in his career, but the deal was more so to relieve salary rather than trying to make an immediate playoff push. In fact, the Jays showed they weren't necessarily keen on keeping him on 2 separate occasions. The first was on June 20th, 2010 when he was optioned to AAA, and a day later was DFA'd by the club. Up until this point in the season, Edwin was doing okay with the bat, hitting 9 homers, knocking in 22 runs, and had a 765 OPS in his 37 games. But when taking defense into account, his production was nowhere near good enough. That's actually part of the reason why he went unclaimed. So off he went to the Jays AAA affiliate, where he would go on to hit 3 homers while knocking in 13 runs, with a slash line that included a 438 average and over 1200 OPS in 7 games. These numbers helped force his way back on the Jays' active roster, and following his recall, he would go on to improve on his pre-demotion figures, lowering his at-bats per home run, raising his batting average by 69 points, and his OPS by 35, ultimately finishing the year with 37 extra base hits, 51 RBIs, a 787 OPS, and 109 OPS plus in just under 100 games. Not terrible power outputs, but once again his defense was hurting his overall value tremendously and yielded him just 1.6 WAR, a number that Blue Jays general manager Alex Anthopoulos did not believe warranted a raise on his $4.75 million salary. So he was DFA'd for the second time by the organization, this time getting claimed off waivers by the Oakland Athletics, and for 1 month it was likely he was going to be suiting up for them come 2011, but in the end he was non-tendered by the A's and signed back with the Blue Jays on a 1-year deal worth considerably less at $2.5 million, with a club option worth $3.5 for 2012. Another change that came with his new contract was a switch of positions. After playing solely third base with some DH days sprinkled in, he became a primary DH with around the same amount of starts between third and first. This allowed him to put more effort on his offensive contributions rather than worry about his defensive problems, which showed considerably in his 2011 splits. At the start of the season, he was spending equal playing time in each position. It wasn't until July 24th when he focused on just first and DH, and at this time you can see a tremendous change in his numbers at the plate. Before the switch, he was struggling, hitting just 7 homers and 24 RBIs in 79 games, while posting a below average OPS at 716. But after the move to DH, he went on to hit 10 homers, drive in 31 runs, post an impressive 31 to 27 strikeout to walk ratio, and an OPS 167 points higher at 883. Now, this dramatic change in numbers can be associated with many different things, yet I still find it interesting that his bat started to get hot once he changed into a less important defensive position. Moving on, because of his excellent play in the second half, the Jays quickly picked up his $3.5 million option for the 2012 season. This is when he started to kick things into overdrive, and it all stemmed from improving his approach at the plate. Take a look at these 2 home runs side by side. The left is his old swing and the right is his new one. Can you spot some of the subtle differences? I'll play the left side again, this time take note of where his hands are. They're pretty high up, but in his new swing, his hands are considerably lower. Now for the leg kick. Notice how high he was bringing his leg up on the left, whereas on the right, it was a lot more subtle, and allowed him to stay more consistent with his swing. And finally, on the left, he was using just one hand in his follow through, but changed that in his new approach, holding onto the bat with 2 hands. These ideas came from former big leaguer Luis Mercedes, who worked with Edwin during the offseason leading up to 2012 in an attempt to get rid of the the inconsistencies his hand placement and leg kick brought him. In his first season with his new swing, he terrorized the league, never once going on a cold streak, with his worst month of the season including 9 homers, 21 RBIs, and an 807 OPS in 28 games, helping him set career-high marks in practically every single offensive category, with 42 long balls, 110 RBIs, 93 runs scored, and a 941 OPS, good for a 153 OPS plus. And when looking in terms of where he stood league-wide, his 42 home runs were 4th best in the league, only trailing the leader Miguel Cabrera by 2, and Curtis Granderson and Josh Hamilton by just 1. He also slotted in with the 5th most RBIs and 5th highest isolated power, surrounded once again by the game's best run producers. It was finally Edwin's breakout season in the bigs. Sure, it took 8 years, 2 teams, and a couple DFAs to realize his ability, but he got there in the end, and was awarded a 3-year $29 million extension with a $10 million option for the 2016 season, locking him up as a cornerstone of the franchise alongside fellow late bloomer Jose Bautista. In the following years, Edwin continued to terrorize the league, featuring in his first of 3 All-Star games in 2013, and finished with MVP votes 5 times between 2012 and 2017. During these years, he had many memorable moments, such as Game 5 in the 2015 ALDS. Now, I know what you may be thinking, that was Bautista's iconic bat flip game, and you're right, but many people tend to forget Edwin also had a crucial home run of his own, tying up the game at 2 apiece in the bottom of the 6th inning, bringing the Jays' win probability up from 35% to 54%, and we all know how that one finished. Following their Game 5 victory over the Rangers, the Jays would go on to face the Kansas City Royals in the ALCS, where they would wind up falling short of their World Series aspirations, getting eliminated in 6 games. But in 2016, they were back in playoff action and faced the Orioles in the winner-take-all wildcard game. And after a hectic 9 innings played by both sides, which included this crazy double by Kevin Pillar where he somehow managed to make decent contact on a pitch way out of the zone, Edwin stepped up to the plate in the bottom of the 11th in a tie game with 2 on and 1 out.
There's a drive to deep left field, and the ball game is over.
Similar to how Jose Bautista has his legendary bat flip, this was Edwin's signature moment as he sent the Jays into the divisional round with 1 swing of the bat, and the O's packing with star closer Zach Britton, who only allowed 4 earned runs in 67 innings during the regular season, on the bench, something that still cracks me up to this day. Throughout these years, the city of Toronto came to idolize Edwin, so when he became a free agent after the 2016 season, most presumed he'd return to the Jays. After all, there was mutual interest between the two. However, after he declined their initial 4-year $80 million offer, the club then shifted focus towards Kendrys Morales, who signed a 3-year $33 million contract with Toronto, officially closing the door on a possible reunion with the franchise icon. And 6 weeks later, Edwin signed for 3 years $60 million with a club option for 2020 with Cleveland. He went on to play 2 seasons with the club and posted solid totals, managing 70 home runs, over 100 RBIs in each season, and an over 800 OPS, but it was clear he was trending downward, and 2018 was his age 35 season. This, coupled with the fact that Cleveland was aiming to reduce payroll heading into 2019, meant he was being traded for the first time in a decade, this time to Seattle. With the M's, he continued to mash baseballs, managing 21 in 65 games, but there was always a feeling he'd be dealt again, with the Mariners in no position to keep an aging slugger in the final year of his deal when the team was already out of playoff contention by June, so he was dealt to the Yankees mid-season, who ate around half his salary. With the Yankees, he was able to fit the description of a Bronx bomber with 13 homers during his 44 games down the stretch, giving him some good totals for the year, including 34 home runs, 86 RBIs, and an almost 900 OPS in 109 games. But it wasn't enough for the Yankees to pick up his option for the 2020 season, so off he went to his 4th team in 3 years, signing a 1-year deal with a club option with the Chicago White Sox. At the time, the Sox were at the beginning of their contention window and hoped Edwin would continue to be one of the game's best DHs, but like many players' careers, 2020 was their last. For Edwin, he was nowhere near his regular production, seeing every number in his slash line dip below league average, resulting in the Sox declining their club option for the 2021 season, ultimately forcing Edwin into retirement, officially ending his career with impressive totals, especially during his peak years from 2012 to 2019. During this time, he was the home run king, managing 297 long balls, 2 more than 2nd place Nelson Cruz and 46 more than 5th place Chris Davis. He posted this amount with extreme consistency, hitting 32 plus home runs for 8 straight seasons, becoming just the 10th player to ever do so, and the majority of the guys on this list came from the steroid era. Moving on, he was the leader in RBIs during these 8 years, totaling 850. The only player in MLB to tally over 800, as the next closest total was 54 behind him. He also found himself towards the top in many other stats such as OPS, where he ranked 9th with an 892 figure, and finally 2nd in isolated power, finishing just 14 points off Mike Trout for first place. So while his career may have ended abruptly and he was nowhere near one of the best ever to step foot on a major league diamond, there were many positives to look back on throughout his career, such as how he brought life back to Toronto baseball alongside Jose Bautista, Josh Donaldson, and the rest of the 2015 and 16 Blue Jays crew. And when he went to Seattle, New York, Cleveland, and Chicago, only good things were said regarding him. How he was a positive influence in the clubhouse, a powerful bat in the heart of the lineup, and of course how everyone loved watching his iconic parrot celebration while rounding the bases. Edwin was a joy to watch throughout his major league career, and I'm glad we could spend this time reminiscing on one of the most unlikely superstars in recent memory. That wraps it up for this video. Let me know your favorite memory of Encarnacion in the comments, and if you enjoyed, make sure to leave a like to help the channel reach more like-minded people, as well as subscribing for more awesome baseball content just like this. Alright, thank you in advance, and I will see you in the next one.